Hey everyone, so today I'm going to be reviewing The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald, and I'll just start it off with spoiler alert. I know that a lot of people have probably heard this story already. I know that I went through it in high school, but I honestly didn't remember a whole lot of it, and so it was basically like going through. I remembered a few of the plot beats. I was like 99% sure that Gatsby died at the end. I guess that was true. Um, yeah, I'm just gonna give basically my overall thoughts on the story. So first of all, I really liked how short it was. I felt like not just because it's fast to go through. It was a really like tight read. Like everything, I felt like had a purpose. I felt like there were no wasted scenes, and I really enjoy that. I wish that more authors today did that. Like even though a lot of the stories that I really like have a lot of fat to them. I mean, Wheel of Time. I mean that comes to mind where there's entire books that people think that could be cut out. Now, I think that that's a bit of a stretch, but I do like the fact that like F. Scott Fitzgerald went out to tell this one story, and it was much shorter. And honestly, I know that that was more of just a product of the time. Just people didn't tell those like super long stories. I mean, you can even look at like the Lord of the Rings, which was considered like a very long story at the time. Um, Honestly, I think all of the Lord of the Rings is probably shorter than one book of the Stormlight Archive, and so much shorter was just like the kind of the name of the game. But I really enjoyed that. I mean, the same thing with like Mice and Men. I know that that's a from a different time period, but also just a short story, really tight, really gets to the point. I also okay, so I am a huge fan of George R. R. Martin, and he's the author of A Game of Thrones and the Song of Ice and Fire series. And I know that he was heavily influenced by F. Scott Fitzgerald, and I could definitely see some of those influences. One of them is with the way the narrator works, and I really like this. So we get the perspective of Nick, and I think that that's really cool because Nick actually isn't the point of the story, or at least not in my interpretation. This is the story of Gatsby and Daisy and Tom, but we get it through Nick's eyes, and you can definitely see that in George R. R. Martin's writing. When you see that with Catelyn, you get the story of Rob Stark and his kind of journey through Davos. You get the story of Stannis. Like you don't have like the actual like focal point characters. Now sometimes you do in some of George R. R. Martin stuff, but you see that tool of not necessarily getting the main story from the point of view that you're looking through, and I find that to be really interesting. And obviously, I know that Nick is basically just supposed to be this like kind of blank slate, so someone that doesn't know any of the situations, so that we can learn it all through him. But I like that. I think that another way that you can really see the influence on George R. R. Martin is with the number of characters that die. I mean, this is a pretty short story, not that many characters, but three people die, and I enjoy that. One of them being a very main person, and like that's another thing. It's like there was like no waste of characters. It's like the George Myrtle, Gatsby, or obviously Gatsby, but like no one was wasted, and I like that. I like that a lot. Um, Obviously, I mean, I guess like Jordan Baker. I'm honestly not really sure what exactly her influence on the story was. But regardless, and also okay, and then I'd like to point out just because I know that a lot of people don't like Daisy. Um, I don't really get that. I feel like she doesn't have like a whole lot of autonomy in her life in general, and I can imagine like living with Tom for so long has been a very big treat. And then I mean just to get on that, I mean talk about a hateable character with Tom. Maybe honestly, maybe that's another influence on George R. R. Martin. Just such an easy to hate character. And then at the end, honestly, I mean I hated it, but like I liked it, but it made you really hate Tom. Just the indifference that he showed for the fact that he pointed George towards Gatsby, and that like that he just didn't care. And just at the end, Nick just kind of like reluctantly shakes his hand just because he's like, you really don't like, you look at him as different. And that's the kind of like the point of Tom's character, I felt like, is that he represents this kind of like entitlement, this feeling. I mean, he's obviously like white supremacist and everything, and so like this feeling that like you're born into this area, and he just looked at Gatsby as less, and he like honestly he legitimately didn't see anything wrong with what he did regarding Gatsby. Obviously, the character of Gatsby I found him to be incredibly interesting. I think that the fact that he does so much lying and everything, I found that to be pretty engaging. That it's a little ambiguous as to like how much of what he was telling was true. Some people think very little. Some people think a lot. I go somewhere in between. Um, I will also comment on the movie because I had never seen the movie before, and I watched it right after I finished the book, and I thought it was really, really bad. I don't know if that's like I haven't looked at like any reviews for the movie, but like I thought it was so bad. I thought that there were so many parts that were just incredibly cheesy, and like I honestly couldn't believe that that was the direction that they took it. I hated the guy that they had to play Nick. Like I don't know why. Like I know that that guy's in like other stuff. I think he like plays Spider-Man or something. I'm not sure. Um was not a fan of him. Like he had this like for someone, and also like the fact of having like the point of view be through Nick the whole time. Like I get it that they like tried to like have that be a thing in the movie too, but there were some scenes where it made like it was really weird for Nick to be there. Like there was like where Gatsby and Daisy were like having this like romantic moment, and then Nick was like just like weirdly watching them and like closing the door. It's just wasn't a huge fan of that. I like that they tried to keep the spirit of the story, but not a fan of that. And then also I okay, huge Leonardo DiCaprio fan. I mean Titanic probably my favorite movie. I did not like DiCaprio as Gatsby. I felt like he did not fit what I was picturing for Gatsby, and that was going into it knowing that Leonardo DiCaprio plays Gatsby. I just got a much more like kind of awkward vibe from Gatsby that I just felt like Leonardo DiCaprio just isn't. I mean, he's just not awkward. I mean, he's incredibly like smooth and everything. Like, and so I didn't buy it when he was pretending to be like awkward and shy. And that's from some. I think that he's a really, really good actor, and like I get what they were trying to do. They wanted this to be like super romantic and everything, and so they wanted Leonardo DiCaprio to play Gatsby, but I think it was the wrong move. I don't think that he really embodied the spirit of Gatsby for in my opinion. I don't know if that's like a common thing that people say. I imagine it is though because I think that a lot of people probably had the same reading. But regardless, yeah, I was not a fan of the movie like by any means, and also like for such a short story, like I felt like there was large portions of the movie that could have been cut out. But this isn't a review of the movie. Overall, I think that this is definitely one of those like quote unquote classics that really holds up to like all the hype that it gets. I thought that this was a really, really interesting story. I don't know if F. Scott Fitzgerald had any other works. I know that he like passed away fairly early, and so I'm not sure. And I also find it interesting that this isn't a story that was popular right away. It's one of those works that like kind of became more popular later. And so I'm gonna definitely do some more like research and digging into that because I did find it a really good story that held up. I put it up there with like Of Mice and Men, that like one of those classics that like I don't know if I think it still makes sense to like have people read it in school just because like I think that we should have a pretty high standard for that, and honestly I think a lot of the books that people are forced to read in school aren't very good. The Scarlet Letter comes to mind. But regardless, really good story. I really enjoyed it. If you guys disagreed with anything I said in this review, or if I got anything wrong, about like my perceptions of what people think, or just like any like facts I said about the book, I don't think I did. Definitely leave a comment down below. But if you enjoyed the review, make sure to like and subscribe, and have a great day.